I want to take this opportunity to welcome all my friends, family, students, little brothers and sisters to our brand new channel Katakuti. Well, while thinking of a name for our YouTube channel, we hooked on to Katakuti because we believe that our life is more of a crossword puzzle. Here, in this apolitical and a religious channel, we seek to answer some of the basic questions of human life which cause pain and indecision in our soul with the help of the Bhagavad Gita. I hope all of you will understand the video, like and encourage us to go ahead to present you with new videos every week. Thank you. Hindu mythology does not have the concept of the judgment day or the Qayamat in Arabic. The god of Hinduism is no judge. Hence, Krishna gives no commandments in the Gita. He simply explains the architecture of the world. As long as we judge, we cannot see the world for what it is. We are simply spellbound by the boundaries that we build, separating those whom we consider family from those who we consider as enemies. In this video, we introduce to you the concept of darshan or observing that is implicit in the Vedas and the Gita as well as in the Mahabharata, but becomes an explicit rituals in the temples of Puranic Hinduism where devotees are invited to gaze upon the enshrined deity and the deity looks at them without a blink. Many of us do not know that the Gita begins with how Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan, and Arjun view the same battlefield. Below is what Dhritarashtra says in the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita. It is the only verse that he speaks. Sanjay, tell me what is going on between my sons and Pandu's sons as they gather in the Kurukshetra, where they have to do what they are supposed to do. Dhritarashtra is the head of the Kuru family, whose two branches are about to clash on the battlefield. Naturally, he is curious about what is going on there. He is also concerned whether the right thing is being done there, for he refers Kurukshetra as Dharmakshetra. However, he refers to his sons as the Kauravas as mine and his nephews simply as the Pandavas, son of Pandu, not as my brother's son. Thus, he expresses his exclusion of the Pandavas from his heart. He sees them not as family but as outsiders, intruders, and even enemies. He does not realize that this exclusion is the root of adharma, that is, the undoing of the Kuru clan. Dhritarashtra's blindness is not so much the absence of sight as the absence of empathy. Dhritarashtra's blindness extends to his eldest son Duryodhan, whose conduct on the battlefield is then described by the royal charioteer Sanjay. O king, your son is not surprised that the enemy is so well prepared. After all, their commander Drishtadyumna is also the student of his tutor Drona. He declares that the Pandavas may have the mighty Bhim leading a limited army, but he has the veteran and the invincible Bhishma on his side, his limitless army. Having said so, he orders his soldiers to guard Bhishma at all costs. Duryodhan's words, as described by Sanjay, reveal irritation, insecurity, and agitation. Despite the fact that he has 11 armies compared to only 7 that the Pandavas have managed to acquire. Sanjay then proceeds to describe Arjun's entry into the battlefield. Arjun looks confident, the Gandiv in hand, on his chariot drawn by 4 white horses, with the image of Hanuman, the mighty monkey god, on the flag fluttering above. He asks his charioteer, Lord Krishna, to take him to the center of the battleground, in the space between the two armies. There, in no man's land, the enormity of this unfolding tragedy dawns upon him. On either side are family and friends, elders, teachers, uncles, nephews, son in laws, father in laws. Before him are those he should be protecting and those who should be protecting him. Instead, they are planning to kill him and he to them. Why? For a piece of land. How can that be right or good? What impact would it have on the forthcoming civilization? O Krishna, Dhritarashtra's sons are my family. How can we slaughter them? They whose greed blinds them to the horror of the situation. If we kill family over property, why will the women bother with fidelity? Why will communities respect boundaries? All rituals will be abandoned and all the ancestors will be forgotten. Those who unravel the fabric of the family will surely sink into hell. This response is full of fear and confusion, extremely different from the views of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. The Kauravas, father and son, have clearly drawn boundaries dividing those they consider to be their own and those they consider to be outsiders. Arjun's boundaries, however, wobble. How can a family be enemy? The Mahabharata describes Arjun as a highly focused archer who could shoot his arrow into the flying bird without being distracted by the clouds above or the trees below. Yet, at Kurukshetra, Arjun looks beyond the target and sees family and friends. He questions the morality of his wanting to kill them and the consequences of such a violence on society as a whole. It is not the violence that bothers him. He has killed before. What bothers him is the violence against his own family, those he is meant to protect. Here is the very reverse of the psychological blindness displayed by Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. Arjun's vision is expanding. Focus is giving way to perceptions, attention, dhyan, and awareness, dharma. As his gaze finally rejects the boundary separating the self form from the other and action from responsibility. This is darshan. In darshan, there is no judgment because there are no boundaries, no rules, no separation of right and wrong, mine and not mine. Dhritarashtra is unable to do darshan because of his memories. He bears a deep grudge. He was born blind. Yet, it was he who was never seen. Not by his uncle Bhishma, who decided that Dhritarashtra's younger brother Pandu should be made king instead of him. Not by his wife Gandhari, who decided to share his blindness by wearing a blindfold all her life rather than compensate for it. Not by his beloved son Duryodhana, who preferred the advice of his maternal uncle Shakuni to his own. Not by his advisor and half-brother Vidur, who always praised Pandu's 5 sons but never his 100. Unseen by all, he is simply paying the blindness forward. Arjun has many reasons not to do darshan. The Kauravas tried their best to kill him and his brothers when they were children. They humiliated him and his brothers repeatedly in the gambling hall. They dragged the Pandav's common wife Draupadi by the hair and attempted to disrobe her in public. They refused to return Indraprastha, the Pandav lands. Even though the Pandavas have kept their side of the agreement and spent 13 years in exile. The Kauravas even refused the offers of compromise for the sake of peace. Yet Arjun finds it hard to respond to the call of blindness with his blindness. In an attempt to goad Arjun into action, Krishna reminds him of his sufferings, his brothers, his mother, his wife has undergone, and of his duties as a warrior, brother, and husband. Krishna even questions Arjun's manliness when he mocks his action to those of a non-man. He speaks of the glory of paradise that awaits him if he dies, and the satisfaction of victory that awaits him if he lives. But none of these have any impact on Arjun. He refuses to let memories strip him of empathy. He does darshan, and that makes him a worthy recipient of the Bhagavad Gita. Long before the war, when the negotiations of peace had broken down, Krishna had revealed his cosmic form, Virat Swarup, the same form he shows Arjun during the course of disclosure, both to Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, perhaps to impress upon the father and son that his words needed to be taken seriously. But Dhritarashtra, granted momentary sight, had simply declared his helplessness before such awesomeness and shrunk back into blindness, while Duryodhan had seen it as a magical trick. Both father and son refused to see what was shown. They clung to the view that were the victims. Thus, showing does not grant seeing. Telling does not guarantee hearing. Gyan is not Vigyan. You need to endorse it. You need to accept and surrender to it. In judgment, the world is divided between the good and the bad, innocent and the guilty, polluted and pure, oppressor and the oppressed, privileged and underprivileged, powerful and powerless. In darshan, one sees a fluid world of cause and consequence, where there are no divisions, boundaries, hierarchies, or rules. A world created on the base of judgment evokes rage. Life becomes a battleground, like Kurukshetra, where both sides feel victimized, where everyone wants to win at all costs, where someone will always lose. A world created by observation evokes insight, hence affection, for we see the hunger and the fear of all living beings. Life becomes a performance on the stage, aimed to nourish and comfort the other, while deriving nourishment and comfort from their delight. Krishna's performance leads to him being worshipped as the Ranganath, the lord of the stage. He never judges, so he sees not one as a victim. This is how the Bhagavad Gita begins. Arjun, you grieve for those whom you should not feel sorry for, and you agree as if you are a man of wisdom. But the wise grieve for no one, neither the living nor for the dead. This is where we end our first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where we learn that we don't need to judge. Let the judgment be for the gods. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.